I'm now joined by Erol Morkoc, a spokesman for Republicans overseas and defence intelligence expert. Erol, it's a pleasure to have you on. So I don't know if you just heard my guest ahead of you, and I asked her what this strike by Israel means for relations between the US and Qatar. Is that a major concern now after this escalation?
I would say that it's not even a concern. It's actually quite to the contrary of what the prior guest expressed. And while I understand her sentiments or personal wishes, in this situation, we're seeing it unfold on the television screens. This was something that was well arranged with Qatar. This was something that was well arranged beforehand with Israel and with the United States. Now, these are countries that all have a shared goal. And Hamas was something that the United States had placed in Qatar with the permission, of course, of the Qataris, because we needed a place to keep what was going to be sort of the cornerstone of how our foreign policy with Gaza and Israel was going forward. But as Hamas overplayed their hand on October 7th, and as Israel's reaction escalated to the point where Iran's nuclear facilities and other things were targeted, a lot of things were done to make it that this cohort in Qatar was no longer strategically relevant as an intelligent asset for the United States, for Qatar, or for Israel, or for anybody, and now they were slated to be eliminated. So these people had almost built themselves their own gilded cage, thinking they were protected. But every single one of those people who danced and celebrated the destruction on that sort of famous video was killed today, and they were killed today by the consortium of Israel, Qatar, and the United States.
Erol, I just want to say, actually, we did get some news through across the news wires, and we are hearing that the Hamas leadership did survive the latest Israeli strikes on Doha. Sky News is reporting that they understand this, as well as Al Jazeera TV. So we are getting reports that the Hamas leadership did survive. Is this an epic fail for Israel?
If Hamas's leadership has indeed survived, absolutely, because then they've completely overextended themselves. Qatar has been more of a gracious host than anybody realizes. I mean, keep in mind, this is the only country to be bombed by Iran and Israel in the same year, it seems like. So that on one hand has been a strategic failure, if this news is correct. If they have failed to hit their target, and if they have strategically not lived up to the very high expectations they have, now they've damaged these relations, and they've kind of proven the disingenuous nature of this Hamas contingent that was really an intelligent asset that was set up there. So if they've survived this attack, then this is a catastrophic failure for, at least the implied lethality of the Israeli special forces, as well as the fact that we weren't able to apparently kill them in their own place while we have control of the skies and the local government. That would be an incredible failure if that is indeed true to come out.
And has this in any way inconvenienced President Trump's attempts to broker a ceasefire deal between Hamas and Israel? Because, Erol, in the recent days, it appeared a ceasefire deal was actually pretty close.
I think that it comes down to President Trump's words that he gave us, which was about 24 hours ago or a little bit more, if I'm not mistaken. He said, these hostages need to be freed. You have one day, and if you do not do that, the next step will be coming, and basically you will not like that step. This was the next step. So in the end, when you're holding people hostages and trying to sort of dog walk them to peace deals, it's not going to work out when Donald Trump is on the other side of that. He's a hardball negotiator, and I think once they weren't willing to ameliorate any of his concerns, he was willing to, go all in. However, if they had failed at this, and now they don't have, because think about it, what you're going to do is you're going to knock out the entire leadership and then replace that leadership. Hamas is a fractured organization that's controlled by a lot of other proxies. So the idea that you could reform a Hamas and then make a deal with them is probably a much better deal than working with these existing people. If you failed to kill them and you didn't do that, now it's really not going to be a very good chance for peace whatsoever. And those hostages' lives that are in Gaza are in much worse danger today than they would have been otherwise, if this indeed did go poorly, as you have informed me.
Yes, indeed, Erol, and I think that's the concern for many people, the lives that are being lost. We've heard from the hostage families today, and there is serious concern, the repercussions for those loved ones that are being held in Gaza. But another question is, does this dilute Trump's influence over Netanyahu, or is Donald Trump's voice the only one that can change Netanyahu's mind now on a full occupation inside Gaza City, to bring an end to this war, to come to the table and have a ceasefire?
I think you're absolutely correct in saying that Donald Trump is the only person left who can talk to Bibi Netanyahu. He's the only person who understands perhaps how to deal with somebody like him, and as well, he's the only person who's willing to use the power of the U.S. purse strings and the power of the office in a way that has opposed him before. And while everybody sometimes thinks that Donald Trump is playing to Netanyahu's fiddle, very much Bibi Netanyahu aligns his interests with the general U.S. strategic alliance, and then very conveniently is included in that situation. So going forward, I think the only person who can stop this catastrophe from getting worse is Donald Trump. He's the only person who has that humanitarian spirit inside of him there. I don't think anybody else in the region is committed to lives and just in the concept of lives. Obviously, Bibi Netanyahu has his own goals and own tangible goals that aren't aligning, I don't think, with the U.S. strategic interest. And as much as Israel is an independent country, they are in many ways a vassal state of the U.S. hegemonic empire. Without the U.S. Navy, there is no Israel. In 6 months, the country functionally would not be there. It cannot defend itself without the United States, which gives the United States a tremendous amount of leverage in these negotiations.
Erol Morkoc, a spokesman for Republicans overseas. Brilliant to have you on the show and your analysis and insights. Thank you.